What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Some interesting stuff to talk about today, including Battlefront 2, because it won't stop. Battlefront 2, the entire debacle with Battlefront 2 just keeps getting weirder, and it just keeps getting worse, and we're going to go through that today. I can't wait till it comes out tomorrow, because maybe it'll kind of leave the news then, other than sales, which we'll go over, but let's talk about Battlefront 2, and we also had some sales figures come back for the Xbox One X that's much more concrete than what we're used to over with media crates in Japan. Let's get started. So I just talked about Battlefront 2, and that's because, again, it's exploding on the internet. Now, one of the biggest things that come out today, well, there's two big things. One of them being the time it takes to unlock everything in the game through multiplayer, or how much money you need to spend to skip that time to get everything in multiplayer. Because you could do either one. You can play for what is assumed to be, at this point, calculations. I'm not sure if they added in some of their achievements you can get in-game that give you credits as well. But in this case, I think they just did mostly timed based. It was pretty interesting. They weighed different values and everything to make sure it was as accurate as they could get it. And they came up with over 4,500 hours. That's right, according to them, it takes 4,528 hours or $2,100 in USD to get everything in the game. So you can either spend a ton of money or you can play for over half a year nonstop, no breaks, nothing, to get everything in the game. Now listen, EA doesn't want you to unlock everything in the game right away. They need a carrot on a stick to keep you playing for a while, because they are currently, at this time, very, very enamored with MAUs, or monthly active users. It's super important for their business model going forward, which involve these loot crates, right? Which involve these recurring revenue streams. They need you playing all the time. Basically, they want, essentially, if they could have it their way, they would release 2 games a year, and you would play those games nonstop all year. That's kind of what their business model is going towards, where they don't have to develop as many games. And we've seen that kind of in trends where different studios and different game companies are developing fewer and fewer games every year because they are trying to tap into that reoccurring revenue, and this is no different. They want there to be it take you a while, not necessarily have a ton of stuff in the game, just take you a while to unlock everything. They also had their Reddit AMA yesterday, which went as well as you would expect. Not well, because of course everybody wants to ask them on Reddit when they do an Ask Me Anything. They of course want to ask different things about that company or different things about that person that may not have been asked face to face most times. This, of course, includes, why did you put so many loot boxes in our game? In a game we want to play a lot. Maybe you're the big Star Wars fans, maybe they like the first one. Why did you take that and turn it into a loot box craze, a big mess? And they didn't really have many answers for it. My favorite excerpt, though, is one that Game Informer, because Game Informer actually went through and summarized a lot of it, because trust me, a lot of it was just stupid comments of people yelling at them with no real questions. But one of the best sections of the AMA is this right here from Game Informer. Bronville was asked about the credit limit present in the game's arcade mode, stopping players from earning credits with a cooldown timer for double-digit hours. As we want to let players earn credits offline via a more relaxed game mode, we needed to also find a way to make sure it wouldn't be exploited in a way that would impact multiplayer. Because of that, we made the decision to limit the number of credits earned to stop potential abuse. A follow-up post asked him how this makes sense when you could just buy loot boxes, but Bronville did not reply. I wonder why I didn't reply to that one. Is it because, well, people could exploit a legal way to do it in their game, one that they don't see as cheating, as, well, buying loot boxes? Essentially here they're saying, if we didn't put a timer on this thing, people would just play arcade mode all the time, get a bunch of credits, and then they would use that to buy the loot boxes. They would use their credit card then, right? So in their mind, they don't want you to play arcade mode and get these credits for free offline easily. They might be worried about exploits to cheating devices, but if you have online check-ins, which obviously when you sign in, it could then maybe detect if these credits are fraudulent, see your game history. There's a lot of stuff you can see modified code to where it can just, well, ban you. And then, well, most of Battlefront 2 is useless, especially those credits. Those credits are completely useless to you then. You just can't show off or destroy people online with your super broken amounts of credits that you've earned. However, there are people who maybe just want to play offline, not deal with other people, and earn their loot boxes that way. In this case, it would take forever because of this time limit. It's amazing. So they just want you to think that, well, we're looking out for you guys. We don't want people to exploit this system. Now, I do remember one game where they did all of these calculations, and that was For Honor. And, well, I guess that game turned out okay, right? Probably one of the weirdest stories to come out of this entire build-up to Battlefront 2 is a Twitter user apparently impersonating an EA employee. Now, if you don't know, online there wasn't a person who said they worked at EA. They had it all over their bio that they were an EA employee, and I guess they wanted people to think they're working on Battlefront 2. They put out a tweet saying that they had received 7 threats of violence, which in their mind were death threats, and then over 1,600 cases of just really abuse towards them from online users on Twitter. So, of course, people who are mad at, say, Battlefront 2 and the developers and how it's all turning out, they just turn it to individual developers, not just the development team or the higher-ups that are actually making the decisions. No, individual developers on the ground floor. Apparently we're seeing abuse, and that comes way of Big Sean 6'6". However, Jason Schreier over on Kotaku decided to do some investigative journalism and found out that this person more than likely does not actually work at EA. After cross-referencing on LinkedIn, Facebook, and then talking to EA employees, no one's ever heard of him. So according to Jason, this person just said this stuff for attention, and that could make sense to a degree because, yeah, there was a lot of intrigue in Battlefront 2. People were really mad, and in this case, they could kind of play the victim and then, of course, get people on their side. And the tweet that they put out, they usually have 5,000 followers, tons of people retweeted it, tons of people liked it. It was by far something they weren't used to with their following, so it worked for them, I guess, to a degree. But at this point, after Jason reached out to them, their Twitter account is now private, and they have removed all instances of EA from their bio, so it's not looking good for this person. Maybe they did QA or quality assurance at some point as a contract position, not actually working for EA, but contracted out by EA. And that, in their minds, working for EA when it's really not. You're working for your contract company that is then selling your services to EA. So that's the only thing I can think of. Maybe they just believe they were EA person. It makes no sense, though, why they would be getting yelled at for Battlefront 2. All right, now with that all out of the way, let's jump over to Resident Evil Revelations. They put out a new trailer for the Nintendo Switch version, showing off the visuals, which look pretty good. 60 frames for the first game, 30 frames for the other, 1080 and 720p, of course, docked or handheld. They also went over, well, all of the motion controls that we've been hearing. They showed them off well, where you can use gyro aiming, you can use the knife to slash people with, well, motion, and then you can reload, of course, by hitting the bottom. They basically went over all the different things. Some people were kind of put off because it looks like you move the camera when you do the reticule aiming rather than just moving the reticule itself on screen. However, everything looks to be at least using the Switch's unique features. Of course, you don't have to use them. I'm not a big motion control person, so I probably won't, but it's kind of cool that it's there. I will probably showcase it on the channel at some point when it comes out, and we'll check out the motion control, see how it all functions. Either way, at least taking advantage of it. It is coming out at the end of the month, November 28th, so check out Resident Evil Revelations 1 and 2. They are both purchasable separately, 20 bucks a piece, or you can buy the whole pack for 40 bucks. Next up, let's talk about sales numbers in Japan. This, of course, comes way of Media Create sales charts that we look at every week. Gives us an idea of how things sold physically in Japan every week. We can look at games and systems. Now, we're going to take a look at systems, and the Xbox One X is on there. Before I show you this chart, though, I want to remind you how the Xbox One generally sells outside of this week in particular. Usually we see sub 100 numbers. Remember, it's usually a big deal when the Xbox One gets over 100 units sold. So with that, here are the system sales. You're going to see the Switch at the top right away. Almost 80,000, 79,958 units sold. That's well above last week at 64,387. PS4 right below that, 26,058. The 3DS underneath that, 19,369. PlayStation Vita, 3,210. And the Xbox One, that is the whole family. I will tell you what the X and the regular Xbox One sold separately. 1,465. PS3 and Wii U below those to round it out. Now the Xbox One X sold 1,344. And then the regular Xbox One, that should just be any old models laying around, and then the S, 121. So the Xbox One X on two different ends here. One, it did well, according to what it usually sells. On the other hand, this is a bad launch in Japan. For example, the original Xbox One, when it launched, while that does mark the start of a brand new console generation, that was 26,000 units or so. In this case, this sells well below that, a little over 1,300 units. Now, this is a mid-generation upgrade, so of course this is going to appeal to the high-end users who probably already have an Xbox One. I doubt a lot of people went out to buy this as a new system, just because no one was doing that in the first place. This probably tapped into their active market that was able to spend $500 that day when it came out. So is this good for Microsoft? Yes, it's the best they've sold the Xbox One brand in Japan in a long time. Is this also bad? Yeah, Microsoft isn't going to say it's great in Japan because it never has been great in Japan since the Xbox One launched. It's not a market they really even care about anymore, as we've seen. So in this case, they'll take it as a small win in their camp that would have normally been disastrous in others like Sony and Nintendo. and I guess they'll move on from there. I don't expect it to keep selling like this going forward. In fact, I expect a massive drop-off after next week at this point. Like the next media crates we see for this, we'll compare them, because I have a feeling it could be as much as 1,000 unit drop off next week. All right, let's jump over to the games here. I'm going to show you down a little further than usual outside the top 10, because I want to get Sonic Forces on this chart so you can see where it was. But we're starting the chart with Super Mario Odyssey, 73,315. Below that, Call of Duty World War II, Splatoon 2, Need for Speed Payback had its debut week, 20,964. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe right below that, then Assassin's Creed Origins, Ark Survival Evolved, Style Savvy, Dot Hack, and then all the way at the 10th spot, Sonic Forces on the PS4, 5,938. Below that, we'll go with Occult Tick, that's 5,846. Zelda, Gran Turismo Sport, and then Sonic Forces on the Switch, 4,686 at the 14th spot. So this really tells us that Sonic Forces didn't sell very well in Japan, which is a little surprising to me. I thought it would have done a little better. And what's really odd here is the PS4 and the Switch version, very, very similar in terms of sales. In fact, if you add in digital sales here, it could go either way. And it shouldn't be like that, because the PS4 has well above the Switch numbers. I think this just shows that Capcom maybe didn't send as many, or in this case, maybe people just weren't interested. And our last bit of news, let's talk about some possible premieres at the Game Awards show that's coming up. That, of course, takes place midway through December. It's actually going to be right around when the PlayStation Experience takes place. But what's interesting here is Jeff Keighley, who does run the entire thing. It's pretty much his award show that he has built. And if you remember last year, we saw him and Kojima as like best friends and everything. That's the show I'm talking about, where he presented an award to him and made a big scene about it. But this year, he's saying that this is going to be their biggest games premiere that they've ever done, which means that there will be tons of footage, tons of games being shown off there, and according to him, new games that we have not heard about yet. And that's where things get kind of interesting. If you remember, last year we saw new footage from Zelda at the time, and a lot of people are anticipating maybe they show the Zelda DLC at this event if it's not out already, which that would be cutting it close, because they want it to be out this year, they want it to be out before Christmas, and that would only leave about 2 weeks until Christmas time to have this DLC out. I assume they want it out like a week before at this point, Christmas. So you leave yourself 5-6 release dates possible in that time. And it's going to be interesting to see if they either release it that day, or maybe they talk about it being out the following Tuesday or Friday or something. And then there's also the possibility of other studios, something like Rocksteady, which we keep hearing about them have some new game that's coming out soon, at least an announcement before it's coming out. And we have no idea what it is. There's also the possibility of Death Stranding, since him and Kojima are such good friends, that maybe Kojima shows off new gameplay footage or just more story, since we have no idea what that game's even really about at this time. It's just been a lot of speculation and not a lot of gameplay or story. Either way, it should be a lot of fun. We already have all the nominees for the different categories. People have already been voting, and hopefully we see some cool stuff there. I'll be streaming it. I think it'll be a lot of fun overall, so I look forward to anything we see from that, or the PlayStation Experience for new game announcements, or even updates on games that are still in development. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for Newswave. Thanks so much for liking these videos, because they really help. So if you enjoyed the video, hit the thumbs up button down there. Let me know what you think about any of the stuff we talked about today, because there's some interesting stuff, especially around Battlefront 2. People have been so vocal, and I'm sure you, like myself, are just ready for this game to come out, so we can kind of get past it at this point. I mean, I'm ready to move on to like Xenoblade at this point, coming out December 1st, and then some of the other games between then and now, especially like Resident Evil. It seems a little interesting to me to see it on the Switch at this point. But let me know what you think about Battlefront 2. Are you buying it? Are you completely put off? There are a lot of people refunding it. And is the whole thing with social media with that person imitating an EA employee, does that just throw you off? That's just the weirdest thing you've ever heard of. It's kind of weird for me. Also, let me know what you guys think about the Game Awards. What do you think at this point is going to be there? Because it's pretty much anyone's game at this point to figure out what's there. It's going to be so interesting to see if Rocksteady is there with some new game, or if we see something about Death Stranding, because that game is super interesting, but I just want to know more about it. Thanks guys for watching. I'll see you next time.